This is what they're trying to sell us, y'all. This relationship just isn't landing, and I didn't realize what was wrong with Nicole and Carlton until I stopped watching them as a couple and started watching how the show keeps them emotionally controlled. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. When a relationship feels like a transition instead of a desire, then there's no amount of music, close-up shots, or the quote-unquote "we've been friends for years" dialogue that can save it, and that's actually part of the problem. Let's talk about Nicole and Carlton. We can all definitely sense that this story is trying to force two characters together because it's convenient for the plot, not because it makes sense emotionally. Because I keep seeing people try to explain this like it's some sort of mystery, and it's really not. The reason that they don't have chemistry, it's not because the actors can't act, and it's not because the audience is too picky or judgmental. The real reason is simpler, and it's actually built into how the show is writing Nicole and how the show is using Carlton. And I'm going to tell you why. Nicole is a controlled character, right? She's disciplined, composed, and she carries herself like a person who has spent years holding everything together. She's a therapist. She's a mom. She's a sister who is constantly expected to be the stable one. Even when Nicole is angry, she tends to express it with restraint, right? And that's her personality. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it means that romance scenes, they have to be written a little bit differently for her. If the writers want Nicole to feel romantic on screen, then they have to pair her with a man who draws out the softer side of her without really turning her into somebody that she isn't. Right now, she's not wildly attracted to Carlton. She's somewhat mildly attracted to him. And they would need to give her scenes where she's curious, where she's caught off guard, where she's deciding whether she wants to take a risk. And those are ingredients that will create that chemistry for Nicole's character. And Carlton just doesn't do that. His entire energy with Nicole, it feels like he's approaching her very carefully, like she's gonna break at any second. And she's receiving him very calmly and very politely. She doesn't seem to be attracted to Carlton, but she does feel emotionally safe, I guess, and in a familiar place. I don't know, she just seems uninterested. Like, we hear you, girl, you're saying all the right things, but your body language, it always says something else. And it always reads like two people who are trying to do the right thing after Nicole's mess of a life, rather than two people who can keep their hands off each other. And another thing that makes this union feel really stiff is Carlton is never relaxed. He's always in a suit, always buttoned up, always serious, and always speaking in that calm, philosophical tone that sounds impressive on paper, but never lands as romance on screen. And his compliments to Nicole, they feel thoughtful, yes, but they feel like something you'd say in a keynote speech, not something that really makes a woman feel like the object of his desire. And there's nothing about his energy that says, I want you. I want to take you in that mop closet and blow your back out. But instead, his energy is saying, I respect you. And those are not the same thing. They always come across like two people who have agreed to explore something, because logically, it seems like the next best step. But there is no playful tension. There's no looseness. There's no physical ease. Nothing about them is giving, I can't wait to get you home. It gives, we've scheduled this conversation and we're going to carry it through. Carlton specifically, it just feels all wrong for Nicole. It's not just that he's calm and that she's calm. It's not just that they're both responsible with serious careers. I know that doesn't help the situation at all. Carlton on the screen gives me insurance salesman. But the bigger issue here is what Carlton represents inside of her story. Carlton is very much tied to Ted in a way that makes it almost impossible for him to feel like a fresh romantic option for Nicole. He's Ted's best friend and his business partner, which means that every time Carlton is near Nicole, we're aware of the connection that he has to Ted. And that does not equal romance. It just becomes harder and harder to sell, and it's just creating a lot of awkwardness. And this is where I have to give Carlton the side eye, because What do you mean you've been attracted to her for a long time? You don't lust and covet your brother's wife, idiot. Carlton knows all the secrets, right? He knows what Nicole likes. He knows what she doesn't like. He knows what pisses her off and what makes her smile because of his close proximity to Ted. So in hindsight, if I were Ted, I'd have so many questions, bruh. Like, how much true advice can you really give me as my friend when I'm having an issue with my wife? If you're looking at her with lust in your eyes. And even if Nicole tries to move forward, we, the audience, we still feel like Carlton has access to information about Nicole that he really shouldn't have. He knows too much about her marriage. He's too close to the fallout. Now, that's why it comes off as very clinical and a hard sell. It's not that Nicole is cold, it's that the relationship is structured like a practical arrangement. Now, if we were being realistic, Nicole is in a season where it makes sense for her to be cautious, and it makes sense for her to be selective. She's dealing with the stress of Anita's health, and she's navigating the aftershock of her marriage falling apart and the public messiness of Ted's choices. But this storyline began before Anita got her health scare, so we can't blame the lack of chemistry on Nicole's stress levels. And this is also why when a different romantic option enters the story, we can immediately tell a difference. And let me be very clear, we've never seen Nicole have this heated sexual chemistry, or chemistry at all, with anyone on screen for that matter, not with Ted, not with Carlton. And to be honest, in my opinion, there is a bit of a spark with Dr. Kyle. Yeah, Dr. Kyle. And at least he creates this contrast, and the spark is halfway noticeable. And it's not because he's better than Carlton as a person, but because the energy in those scenes had something that Nicole and Carlton just don't have. With Kyle, Nicole had to actually respond in real time, right? She wasn't just coasting on familiarity. She had to decide how much of herself to reveal, how open she wanted to be, and whether she wanted to entertain a new dynamic. Now, that contrast is what exposes the issues of Nicole and Carlton being cut from the same cloth. You have a clinical therapist and a doctor, both rooted in professions that warrant restraint, analysis, and emotional regulation. And all those traits work beautifully in a hospital. Yes, they do, but they don't automatically translate to a believable hot romance. And this is where I think the show is making a bigger mistake that goes beyond just Nicole and Carlton. This show it has a habit of pairing people up because it feels like everyone needs to have this romantic storyline at all times, and that's not true. Some characters can be interesting without dating. Some characters need to be, in a healing season. Some characters can just be interesting and compelling while they're rebuilding. Like, everybody don't have to be in a relationship all the time. And Nicole is one of those characters. Nicole does not need a romance to be valuable. She needs writing that explores her identity outside of being Ted's wife, outside of being the family's responsible one, and outside of being the emotional caretaker for everyone else. If the writers insist on giving us this romance right now with her, then it has to be the kind of romance that forces her to confront something about herself. It has to, challenge her patterns. It has to create this real vulnerability. It has to show a woman who is not just being admired, but being understood. Carlton is not written to do that. Carlton is infatuated with this woman, let's be clear. And Carlton is written to be a safe choice for Nicole. And the audience is responding to that safety by feeling bored. Because boredom is what happens when romance has no tension and no risks. And that doesn't mean that the relationship is healthy or unhealthy. It just means that it's not entertaining as a romance story. Now, if we compare that with Dani and Andre, the differences become obvious, right? Dani is written as impulsive, expressive, emotionally reactive, and Andre's energy plays into that. Their scenes have unpredictability. Even when people don't agree with them as a couple, they still have movement. They still have movements that make you look up from your phone, right? Dani works because she's the opposite of Nicole. She's carefree, she's daring, impulsive, and expressive. She laughs out loud. Dani is the kind of character that acts first and ask questions later. And Andre is written as someone who enjoys that about her. He's been framed as this traveling playboy, someone who has seen enough of the world to appreciate her wild side instead of trying to manage it. Now, that contrast creates chemistry immediately. Now, Nicole and Carlton, they never stood the chance because they're mirrors. They're not opposites, and mirrors don't create sparks. They reinforce control. They don't really have that because neither character is written to be emotionally messy like that. Everything is polite. Everything is reasonable. Everything is controlled. And quite honestly, this is giving two responsible adults who should just remain friends. So if you ask me what the real reason is, it's this. Nicole and Carlton don't have chemistry because the show is using Carlton as a narrative tool, in my opinion, not as this romantic match for real. He's really there to show Nicole trying to move on in a safe way, and he's there to create friction with Ted, and he's there to fill a space until the writers decide what Nicole's next real storyline is going to be. That's it, and that's all, in my humble writer's opinion. And the reason viewers can't buy into it is because we can tell Nicole isn't emotionally choosing Carlton from attraction or desire. She's choosing him because he's available, familiar, and safe. Now, if the show wants Nicole to have this grand romance that feels real, they need to write her with someone who brings out her emotional side without making her act out of character. They need to give her someone who forces her to make decisions that are not based on stability, but on actually longing. Until then, the audience is going to just keep watching these scenes and feeling like something is missing, because something is missing. And it's not the acting, it's the way that these characters have been written. And this is why no matter how well-spoken Carlton is, no matter how respectful he appears, no matter how healthy the relationship seems on paper, it never crosses into real desire. This pairing was written to stay upright at all times. And upright people rarely convince an audience that passion lives there. And this is just my opinion. I mean, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think the show is really doing with Nicole right now? And do you believe that Carlton is meant to be her end game or just a temporary storyline? On your way out, don't forget to like this video. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video. You know I'd appreciate it. And if you're a fan of Beyond the Gates like I am, then go ahead and sub to this channel for more videos just like this one. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Ruthless TV, you guys, and I'm going to see you in the next one.